that's a huge passion. There are like thousands of children that sit in homes that don't get the quality of life and care that they deserve, and that just breaks me to know that. And so, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to teach our children not only about adoption and foster care, but about disabilities, and just about how to handle children and people with disabilities, and where you know you can give your gifts in the world to these kids. Because that, at the end of the day, it's like not about what you have, it's about how you loved. And so I just, for me, I want my children to love well and to love deep, and to like show that, what, you're a loving person and you deserve love.
This quote is inspired and really brings home a mission of love, advocacy, and inclusion for all children. My name is Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. This is part 2 of the conversation with Aaron and Jen, the parents to Jesus, our feature kiddo for the month of August 2021. We ended the last episode talking about the unique combination and relationship that exists with Jesus and his parents. If you haven't listened to that episode, I would stop this now and go back to part 1 first. It provides a lot of context for what you will hear today. We cover so much with this episode, from the impact Jesus has on his family, the daily life and challenges from his diagnosis, and of course, his backstory, which is unique to anyone, much less a child on a rare medical journey. This family is summed up, as I mentioned before, by love, advocacy, inclusion, and to add in, faith, not just for Jesus, but for all of their kids. As you are probably aware, we record these conversations before the month we feature them, which means when we talk to these families, we cover details and answer questions that aren't typically included in the episode. This month, however, as we were going over these details, a conversation arose about foster care, and that hit a chord with all of us in the call, and something that I wanted to include in this podcast. What we talk about is poignant and real. Rare medical journeys are tough. Foster care is tough, but both are driven with love, and that is what comes out of this bonus content. I hope it hits a chord with you also. The actual episode will end with some of our music, and then this conversation will come up before the end. Leading the talk is Josh Veach, one of our co-directors. Here is part 2.
And that leads directly into my next question. We talked a little bit about, how Jesus has changed and developed. Mm-hmm. How have you guys changed and been molded and been impacted by him being in your home?
Life is so short. To see it so fragile. You hear about it all the time, and you see it on the news, and you hear personal stories about people whose lives have been changed. But when you see it in front of your very eyes, how life can go from one way to another so quick, it's so fragile. For me, it's just it's changed. I want to every relationship I have, I want it to be the very best. I expect, I want to have meaningful relationships, because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And the connections that you make with people aren't by accident. They're something. And so, for me, it's just, I've seen that through Jesus. He's led us as a family to certain people and to certain situations. And I don't know, it's just has changed our life as a family, where we're just, it's about us, and our relationships.
Yeah. And I think as parents, if you have kids, there's a certain level of sacrifice, period.
Yeah.
because you're giving up things you want to do or aspirations you might have because you have little ones you're taking care of, and then add medical needs to it. It's a whole different level. There's a bigger sacrifice, and then when you have a big family, that sacrifice is not just the parents. There's sacrifice that has to be made by siblings as well. And I think that's been a huge blessing for our kids.
Yes.
They don't see it that way necessarily.
Yes.
I hope they will at some point.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think they do. But it's required them, like mom's in the hospital. Like if he's in the hospital, Jenna's up there pretty much 24/7, as much as we can. And then I'm back here manning it and getting help from, Carly, mother-in-law, whoever else that we can get to just kind of help man this while she's up there taking care of that. Because unfortunately, things happen in the hospital that shouldn't happen at times. And so we try to make sure that, she's up there as much as she can be, and then, but also be able to come back for a few hours at a time. But that, requires sacrifice on our kids.
Sure.
You can't do this right now because I can't get you to it. Or, things got to be this way today. You got to come with me because, I can't leave you home because they're not, unfortunately, they're not old enough to be able to do that or to watch the other kids yet either.
Right.
No, and I think, it's, to literally be the hands and feet of Jesus here. It's part of our calling, not only like ours, but ours as a family, to take care of and to advocate for these children. And it doesn't just stop at Jesus. For us, it does, but it doesn't stop our voices for like that part of foster care that's so overlooked. For me, that's a huge passion. There are like thousands of children that sit in homes that don't get the quality of life and care that they deserve. And that just breaks me to know that. And so, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to teach our children, not only about adoption and foster care, but about disabilities and just about, how to handle, children and people with disabilities, and where, you can give your gifts in the world to these kids. Because that, at the end of the day, it's like not about what you have, it's about how you loved. And so I just, for me, I want my children to love well and to love deep and to like show that, you're a loving person and you deserve love too, regardless of who it is.
And thankfully, we've seen that with them. With
not to each other?
No,
always,
not to each other, but with, especially with Jesus and, and Corbin too, they love on them and, their family. And I've heard them talk, about adopting when they're older.
Yeah.
And so that, right there is just.
And it's so natural. Yeah. We never had to teach them. We never asked them. I guess we never thought to ask them when we started fostering, and they were babies.
4, 3, 2, 1.
So this is all that they've ever known is like, we love other people. We love other children. And then when we introduced Jesus, it's like, well, of course. And they all, some more than others, naturally just, like when we were on vacation, somebody pointed out to me, Kellen was like, Jesus was drooling and Kellen was talking to me and he was upset at me about something, but he like took Jesus's spit rig and he's like, Mom, like, cause he was drooling. And it's like, those aren't things that you can teach.
Right.
Kids. You can, but it's that like heart for others.
Yeah. He's in the middle of this frustration or whatever's going on. He's like, still caring for his brother. Yes. And they have that compassion and that heart for him. And so, that's amazing to me that they have that, and gives me hope for, the future, for other children that they might, impact. Yeah. Well, that's the greatest compliment I think kids can give, is when you see them modeling love like that. And it goes the other way too, because I have a 2 and a 5-year-old, and sometimes they model the not greatest qualities that I have through the world, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they got that from me. I need to change my attitude, but to see that the other way too, where to model that love and that openness to share life with their brother, regardless of the differences that are really real to them, because Jesus can't interact the same way that some of the other siblings can, and all these different things that they're processing at their stage of life is setting them up for leading in inclusion as they get older. And I think that's really powerful and really cool that you're already seeing that in their lives. One thing that we've had other parents talk about, and that have especially several children with one that is on a rare medical journey, is that it can be sometimes challenging of how do you still be present and fully present and give as much time and focus to all the kids to make sure that they are feeling engaged and loved, even when there are times when one child does require additional time and energy. And so I'm curious, how have you navigated as parents some of those times to try to help them still feel the same level of love, even if time doesn't quite add up for a certain season, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm at home with them while she's in the hospital, usually, there are those frustrations, and having that conversation with them is like, Jesus just needs mom now, needs more now. And it sucks. And, it's not fair. So validating what they're feeling and going through, I think, is huge. Empathizing with them, like, yeah, it's not, I don't like it either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about Jesus, and I don't like mom being away, being separated, our family being, like this is not fun, especially with COVID. It makes it a lot harder because there was one time he was in a hospital stay during our youngest daughter's birthday. At least that was pre-COVID, and so we just took the party up there. Brought cake and ordered dinner and did that there, and it was great. And that's harder to do now. You can't do it, and so that just makes the hospital stays even harder. And then I think just finding things that you can connect with them, their interests, and having those moments with them, and doing it. And we're seeing it a lot this summer. With Jen, with the older ones, they like art, and she likes art, and they do it together.
Yeah.
And connect that way, and just do activities like that.
I feel like Aaron does a way better job with that kind of stuff than me, because I feel the feelings big, and I feel like, when something's going on with Jesus, especially, it's to me all consuming, because it's literally like his life is completely dependent on you. And I mean, yeah, your other kids are too, but it's different. And I like, my bucket feels empty a lot, or not empty, but just, where you feel like as a mother, not sure if you have like enough to give to everybody, because you are so consumed with this other thing. And I've had to learn like how to balance, okay, like, compartmentalize, like, okay, this is Jesus, and like, this is big stuff, but like, my other kids need me too. And I somehow have to figure out how to like navigate and have enough for everybody, because, it's a lot, it's a lot to try to, deal with really big things and still be like, hey, yeah, let's color. I mean, because it seems so trivial, but it's not. Right. I mean,
yeah,
it's just,
it's like the big things that are urgent, but then the big things that are built over time, that if you don't focus on making those little moments, that ultimately they are the big things. They're just being built slowly, more slowly, so you don't see them quite as urgently. And I think that's parenting in general. But in a situation like what you guys are in, it becomes even more difficult, because the urgent and big are so big and so urgent when it's literally life and death at certain times, and you're trying to navigate these medical decisions. But it sounds like you guys have a good teamwork approach of being able to balance. And I'm sure Aaron, as you're at home manning things, that there's probably times where, you might tell Jen, hey, you might want to take a couple minutes or spend some time. Like if you recognize that one of the kids might be struggling more than the others. And I think it's really cool that you guys are, you've navigated so much. I mean, this, having a big family and then taking on an additional child that you love and comes with a different set of circumstances that you've never navigated before, says a lot about your willingness to work together to see the best possible outcomes for Jesus and all of your kids. And I have no doubt that they will see that, and they're seeing that now. And I think they'll even come to treat each other nicely. I'm hoping the same for my kids too.
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing that gives me hope is I know it's not unnormal for that behavior.
Right.
Aaron has siblings that are like close in age. He has two other brothers, so he knows. Yeah. I mean, literally, like, the boys will throw down, and in 2 seconds, they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what just happened? And Clara's still traumatized from what Kellen said to her yesterday, and I'm like, "Whoa!" I mean, boys are. I like that. Like, I like how quick they turn over things and just it's over and done. Girls are so different.
And your range of kiddos, you've got different levels of development and different things that like these different.
Like, we're planning a wedding, and then we're trying to like figure out this surgery on Thursday because Carly's getting married in December. So we're like, I'm trying to pick out like mother of the bride dresses while trying to figure out how I'm going to get to the hospispecial on Thursday. I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, this is definitely the full spectrum of life.
And then dealing with somebody asking you to do this or draw this. Or, can you make me, a snack or whatever.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
The day-to-day joys.
Yes.
This has been great. I am so thankful to have you guys here and to share Jesus' story, but also the bigger picture of your whole family's story. And we're excited to be shouting love all month long. I want to, before we wrap up, we haven't talked about this yet, but I think we know the direction that we're going with the T-shirt, and so I want to specifically talk about. Still as part of this interview, what it means, where you see joy in Jesus' life, specifically when you're in his presence.
I'm like processing, so I'm saying what you just said to me, to myself. Everywhere. I mean, when I look at Jesus, I can be having the worst day, and I just look at him, and it's like he radiates joy. That's why I feel like such a presence of the Lord around him, because I imagine like that's what heaven will feel like to be just happy. I mean, there's just something about him that like he makes my day every day, and I like love him tremendously that I don't know, he just radiates.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like everybody that's met him like feels like kind of touched like that. Like there's just something about him that just is so joyful. I mean, after everything that's happened to him, I mean, everything. And think bad things. I mean, he's been through a lot as an infant. He's like survived, and he's joyful about it. And it's like, if he can be joyful, I sure the heck can be joyful too. Mm-hmm. Because my life compared to like that, it's nothing. I mean, he's truly a joyful individual and smiles still after going through everything that he has to on a daily basis. So I don't know. For me, that's like what it is.
And I would say it's similar, just that smile, and then his talking, his noise that he makes when he's happy. It's like you can be frustrated because a lot of times I'm tired.
2
a.m. He's up.
We're passing him off. Like I was up with him, and I get up to like hand Jesus to Aaron, and he's like, like he's so happy, and it's just
like you can't. They're like, okay, all right, I can't be mad at you. Okay, let's go. Let's just
because I think there's that piece of like fragileness that's part of his story that most kids don't have, that always hinges, like it always catches you because you're like, this is special. Like this smile is special. This following me out like around the room with his eyes is special. Like to me, those things are never taken for granted with him because they're so powerful, because they're so like pointful, if that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
he really is trying. And
Yeah.
I think that's, I mean, that's huge for us.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
we
your
really,
time.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we really do. I'm speechless, really, because
Awesome.
it's, you know, it's a great opportunity for us, like I said before, to like, you know, just put a spotlight on Jesus, who, you know, more than anything deserves to have that moment. And, you know, just a spotlight on, you know, the, you know, community of, you know, foster care and,
Yep.
you know, medical needs and stuff. Because
Yep.
I know for myself, I mean, I never even thought about medical needs in foster care. You think about like, you know, babies of, you know, different nationalities and like that kind of stuff when you think of foster care sometimes, and that's so stereotypical. But there's that one side of like, there's such a need. And there's such a need. And I like, it makes me sad to think that for 6 years we were so like, you know, just so whatever that word is, like narrow mind, yeah, focused on just, you know, what was in front of us versus like, you know, there's a whole other community that we didn't even know about.
Yeah.
And I like to, with this, I think you mentioned it earlier, like just give an opportunity of those people that know us to really see like what we're doing, because it's hard to have that conversation on the side of a field or
Right.
like in a coffee or even at work. It's like, I mean, they kind of know, but they don't really know.
Right.
And this is a great way for them to be able on their own time to like really get to see.
Well, and why we do it. Because I know
Yeah.
a lot of people, or, you know, I'm sure that there are people that look at us like, why would you do that? Like, you already have like 4 young children.
Right.
Why would you open your home, and not only open your home, but adopt not 1, but 2, and one with high medical needs? And I mean, if, you know, hopefully, like, if you're not a follower, you know, we can, you know, lead you a little bit and try to show, you know, because life is so much better with the Lord in it. And when you follow, you know, God's calling, it's hard, but it's
easy.
It's easy.
Yeah. Well, and when you're driven by love, that's a game changer. And just in the same relationship with, you know, a biological child, love is rarely convenient. Love is rarely easy. And the same is true for fostering, and especially true for a rare medical journey. You know, a kid that's on a rare medical journey is that, yes, it comes with their different extra challenges or difficulties, but love keeps you moving on those things. And I think that's what's cool about these stories that we get the privilege to help share, like your families, is that when driven by love, you do hard things, and it can be challenging, but on the other side, there's goodness, and even along the way, there's joy to be found. There's opportunities to learn and grow and become different in a good way than you would be if you weren't doing it.
Well, there's so many things that we've learned, you know, through fostering, just in general, like, you know, families and, you know, reunification, and just, you know, trying to, even though like in your heart you don't want to, but I mean, in your heart you want to, but like your mind doesn't, because this is your child. Like, you've had this child for this long, and now all of a sudden you're expected to, like, you know, build a relationship with the bio parent. But you do it out of love, like you said, because you love that child, and in turn you love that parent, because that's where they really belong in the end, before they belong with you or with you know, it's like they belong with their parents. So I mean, I think that is huge, and that's one side of foster care that's not often talked about. Is just that, I mean, they always say, you know, reunification first, but do you really mean that when you say that? Because to say it is one thing, but then to do it is a complete other, and that's really hard. I mean, we've had to do that a couple times, and it's like the last thing I want to do is try to like build a relationship with this parent to help like this child, because that would be, I mean, that's hard, but it's the right thing to do. And it's been, you know, it's really opened our eyes to a lot of different things.
Yep.
Good
And
things.
and to be challenged to when you're faced in that situation of like you're naturally I don't know if this has ever been the case for you guys, but I've talked with I mean we've experienced this to some degree, and I've talked with other foster parents that have experienced this, that you're almost recognizing that you're accidentally rooting for someone else to fail. And it's
Yeah.
like this real
Like,
strong
don't break
moment
your
of
service
like,
plan. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then this real strong moment of like that is so selfish of like
Yeah.
Yeah,
of
it
recognizing your own
is.
selfishness and being like, oh,
Yeah.
no, we're here, like you said, because reunification is the goal, and that
Yeah.
might mean it's harder for us, but ultimately we want that child to be as close to home as naturally as it was intended as possible.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not the case, but that's not the goal. Is for that to be the exception rather than the rule. And so I think that's what makes there's a Go Shout Love family that is I've been following along. They're currently fostering, and it's been over a year and a half maybe since we featured them, but they're walking through some of that right now of like a child that's been in placed with them and then back home and then back placed with them, and they're like real. I mean, it's this raw emotion of like, and
Yeah.
it's a young baby too, and it's like,
Oh,
man, how challenging of like give this child all
yeah.
your love and then give them back and then root for that parent to succeed and really mean it is not easy. And then you go
No.
backwards and they come back in your home, and yeah, it's a messy
Yeah.
world that we live in. But man,
Yeah, it's really, I mean, that's like the placement that we had before Jesus. She was with us since she was 2 days old, and the parents were never involved. I mean, the dad kind of always was in the background, but not really too much. And like it was just like the court and the system failed the bio dad big time, and we saw that, but that doesn't,
But it took us a while to see it.
and it doesn't stop us from loving her like she's ours, like we do every
sure.
child that walks in. And but for her loving us, and us, like me sitting at doctor's appointments because she had some medical needs, and being like, okay, I'm gonna have to teach him how to like work this G tube, like feeding and stuff, even though I don't want to, because
Hmm.
she's my baby. Like
Hmm.
but she's not. Like
Yeah. And then have CPS say monitor it and catch them doing wrong so we can use that against them. It's just like you said, you're rooting for somebody to fail. And it's just
and in
like
that,
we got caught
right,
up in it. It's like that's
because
not
CPS
right.
doesn't always have the best intent. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard stories, and just, it's not, they don't always have the best hearts about things and the kids. And it's just hard to see that when you, you know, like the goal becomes blurry then, because in the end, the goal should always be reunification. Like, it doesn't matter if the way that we would like raise her might in your eyes be better. That doesn't matter, because we're not her parents,
Right.
you know. And that's what's,
And
so,
that would have kept her from her two older sisters too.
I mean, she had two older sisters, and I mean, and it was super hard. I mean, she was she was almost 3 when she left, and she was crying. I mean, it was literally out of like a movie, crying mama when CPS took
Mm,
her. It was really, really hard,
yep.
but we wouldn't have Jesus, and I still talk to her dad every once in a while, and she's doing fine. I mean,
She doesn't really have any medical issues anymore either.
no, and I think that was like, sometimes you're not meant to be in somebody's life forever. Sometimes you're just meant to like fit that like puzzle piece of their life. And I feel like that was our place with her. It's like we thought we were her forever, but like the Lord was like, no, you're actually just like a puzzle piece of her life. Like, her life is going to go on. And I mean, it's like her dad wouldn't have known how to take care of her.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't capable of that. Like he didn't understand. And so we met her needs and we got her through. And then we were like, here you go. Like, here's, and he was so thankful. It is a good story, even though it's sad for us. Sure. And it's definitely sad for our kids. Our kids Carly was devastated. It's just, but they understand, like, that's part of the process. And that's if you're fostering the right way.
Yeah.
Not the right way, but
you're absolutely right. When you're fully on board with the goal of reunification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, it's easy to say that until it gets hard. And then it's like, oh, do we really believe what we signed up for? And what's cool is not only did you serve a purpose for that child during that season, but you're in some ways too, you're also like giving that parent a reset button. Yes. And you can go back and forth on the systems of this at each state and how broken they are, and that's true. There's truth in that, but there's a certain element of like, I don't know, there's a certain element of gospel in it when it's like a second chance at a life with their kids, even if they've messed up royally, maybe more than once. But if obviously you're not advocating for a child to be put in danger or in a situation that's going to be traumatic or unhealthy or anything like that. But to serve that purpose not only for that child in that season, but to also give that parent a chance to reset and prepare to step back into that role and be better equipped for that role of parenting is a huge blessing. And I think it's it's hard work, it's messy work, but man, good for you guys for doing that. That's really awesome.
Well, you too.
Yeah, you too. You're walking the walk too. So you have your own story.
Yeah, we have. It's been a while. We no longer are fostering, but it's definitely one of the most challenging seasons that we went through. And it's you learn a lot about yourself becoming parents. You get married, you learn how selfish you are, and then you have kids and you realize really how selfish you are. And I think fostering is just like a different layer of that same selfishness of like just kind of peeling back this onion of like, oh man, who am I really underneath all of this? And it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but it's a hard thing for sure.
It adds an unexpected growth inside of you.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought I would ever foster. I was in a relationship for a long time with a guy who was adopted, and he had huge attachment issues and just trauma, and his parents would always talk to me about that. And I remember saying, I will never foster. I would never adopt. And God probably was laughing so loud because he's like, you have no idea how
right.
your life.
He's like, bookmark. I'm going to write that into the story a little bit.
So, I never imagined how it would have changed our whole family. And it's definitely a season that's over for us. I don't think that we will ever probably foster again, in the future.
Mark this one.
Yeah, I know. I know.
La 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 la.
I didn't say it really.
Oh goodness.
I hope that conversation struck a chord and lifted your day up a notch. At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Joy is Where You Are design is inspired by Jesus, a cheerful, loving, and sweet 2-year-old from Houston, Texas, who brings joy to anyone he meets. Every purchase in August will go towards making modifications to the family's van to make travel easier and more comfortable for Jesus. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Jesus through the purchase of a t-shirt, tank top, hat, tumbler, or other items. Thank you for listening. I hope you were able to take something away that will help you face the world, and with us, go shout love.